important. We talked about water. And the next point is energy, which tackles everybody of us every day, for sure. And all of us know probably the goal of the European Union to transform our energy system in a more renewable way, or to use more renewables. So Repower EU and all the Green Deal Act, as mentioned by the European Commission, bringing up certainly some good ideas on how our energy usage on the one side, and of course the energy production or electricity production should be based on new renewables. Actually, I see those renewables, mainly we talk about solar, wind, and power, need a lot of incentives. In most of the countries in Europe, you see some kind of feed-in tariffs, which are incentives in terms of energy production, which I personally think is not the best way, because I just give money to produce electricity from a technology which is probably not developed in the way. Could be done probably better. Yeah? But I think it's a common sense that people in Europe ask for a kind of green electricity, the use of renewables, and to hide more and more those fossil fuels, which are responsible, of course, for these CO2 emissions, which are again responsible for the change in climate. Just recognize that the discussion on climate change is probably somehow not so touching us like the change of weather. Something everybody notices, it's more raining or rainfall or less rainfall. But it's another point, it's more a water point. The diversion or the transformation in the energy system from these fossil fuels to the renewables faces also some problems in terms of storage. Yeah? We have renewables, as we heard already today in the morning. The sun gives us a lot of solar, but the sun is shining during the day and not in the night, where, for example, the demand is there. So transformation in renewable energies, renewable sources goes hand in hand with a kind of storage problem or storage challenge, and needs also some investigation there. Basically, it's this volatility topic. If you go down to local structure, I see in Austria, but also in Germany. Germany is quite in front of giving incentives to this new technology, solar. Bavaria turns out to be the sunny state in Europe. A lot of income, but basically what happens in some days, the production of solar energy was so high that even the demand was overtopped. So they had to store it. So they give, luckily for Austria so beside Germany, we took the energy, the electricity, put it in our pump storage, very cheap because it's too much here for a low price. And then when Bavaria was facing a lack of electricity, we give them back the electricity for a higher price. This was the economic benefit of Austria, business model. Turned out at the end, so they said no common market anymore. Yeah, point is, I see when I started before this kind of incentives, kind of legislation, I see it critical always to support only one technology, and that's something what happens. It's something you get money for wind. If you set up a wind plant, you get money for the production. If you install solar now, you get money. Just Germany just brought, I think last day I saw in the note in the news, 500 million euros just for solar production and electro charging stations and so on at home. Yeah? Today morning I was reading the news, so that it's already gone. This 500 million is already finished. So it's in 1-2 days. It will never be enough. The point is from my side, and this is quite good, why also here the thinking of the Nexus, the kind of holistic approach is we should use really every source what we have, what we can combine it very usefully, and then have the best or the optimal output. Means if not every country has, for example, hydropower, but has probably more wind, probably more solar to shift, to combine, to decentralize also, because also the storage capacities are a huge problem. And if you think, what is also in every mind is how we put some batteries there. Forget it. You will never store the amount of electricity needed in batteries, in a huge battery farm. This is so costly. This uses so much materials, raw materials. So we have already in the European Union this Critical Material Act. We have to find new ideas. The new idea is hydrogen. Hydrogen is also, it's nice. You can use hydrogen. But to produce hydrogen and to store hydrogen uses, again, a lot of electricity. You have to compress it up to a few hundred bars. You get a lot of heat by the compression. And then later on by the decompression again. So technologies are there, have to be combined very, but please not funding, not giving incentives just for the production. It's for me a really big favor. So it should be okay. You get, for example, develop the technology. If you get money for a solar station, a few percent should be given to research. However, in this field, don't talking just of hydropower, talking also of wind and others. We have seen in when we developed the proposal for the cost action on sustainable hydropower, we saw that there's a lot of money went to the research of wind projects, of solar projects, but very less to hydropower. Good for us. I think that was a reason to establish the cost action. But it's still I think it needs much more in the research field and more in the holistic field. Of course, in the overall perspective, then we need also the specialists of the single technologies. That's the point. And last point probably is here to raise the voice for this kind of thinking. So I'm thankful to be in this community here. Not just looking on one particular parameter, but looking on more. To build up more complex methods, to build on more overarching ideas, including stakeholders, and to come up with a solution which is sustainable. The point is we are talking very often of renewable energies. We are using renewable sources, because the sun is shining, it's raining, and we have probably wind, which is a result of the sun. But you can use also these renewable sources in an inefficient way. You can pollute them, and so on. This is not sustainable. So when we talk of sustainability, and hydropower is really the only resource or the only technology having a sustainability standard at the moment. So it was a process of 20 years of stakeholder interaction and engagement to develop a standard. You can download the hydropower sustainability standard, have a look. If you want to implement the hydropower station, you have criteria on the sustainability. No other resource, not wind, not solar, have those standards. We talked last week where we have colleagues met in Brussels, when they said we are not allowed to implement any wind power station anymore, because visibility and so on. So it's a kind of work on this kind of sustainability. I can just encourage to go this way, otherwise we will not be successful. Just in terms of water, the last 1.5 years, for example, we run a research project on hidden hydro, and in our department, a research project on energy recoveries from water supply network. So we are looking really on, is there any energy wasted? It is. Yes, it is. You can recover it. Probably not to bring this energy into the grid, but you can recover so much energy probably to feed a sensor and then to digitalize the water supply network and to find water losses, because water losses are critical in that area. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I'm finished.
No. I think
Yes.
so the ecosystem. I think this should be addressed in hydro. I didn't hear anything about the ecosystem in hydropower. In relationship to hydropower, for me, the biggest concern is the ecosystem.
The ecosystem.
Yeah. So the ecological flows, how it affects. Which means what? What does it say? The standard.
You have to check all those things. These are really points in the sustainability standard. Starts, for example, already at the planning phase. So you have to take those stakeholders into account. You have to look on them. If you look, there are.
Is the practice like this though? Is this what happens? Because if we see the experience, it's that energy usually takes first role, a top role, because they think of themselves, and they are a critical, of course, sector. And then when the needs arise, the ecosystem really is the one that is left behind, and people will sacrifice the ecological flow for their needs. So, but this is becoming
more and more common.
and it's an important issue as biodiversity is collapsing and all that stuff. So what can we do there? See, my biggest concern is there, but my agony is there. Is there anything
you're
we can
totally
do?
right. You're totally right. There have been done mistakes in the past. Exactly. But this is coming up more and more. To implement the sustainability standard, you can certify. There's a certification process. Yeah, and within the certification process, you have to look on that.
So do we have any examples that people really turned it around and the ecosystem remains not unaffected, but
it's a huge topic is the kind of sediment transport in the river.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. To monitor the biodiversity. There's some kind of new idea on this environmental DNA. To monitor, and it's not just picking up one current situation, but you have to monitor it in a longer term.
And to me, the energy hydropower stakeholders are the most difficult to deal with. Exactly, because they are the sheriffs in town. They are the ones that they don't come to. I mean, this is a difficulty that we need to address somehow, right? Do you see it from your point of view?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I got
That's why
it.
he's here, because he wants to discuss with
Yes, and I appreciate the potential, of course, of hydropower, but we should find a way to make it, and actually enforce it, environmentally sustainable, enforce it, and make these energy people actually respect that. See, that's the biggest one.
and I also think that the well-established standard doesn't need to be always the same. I think we are moving into dynamics, actual different standard of environmental sustainability. Perhaps also this could be one of the questions. I might have one more question, but I want to give the floor to. I see the audience, first.
Yes, thank you, Professor. My name is Per Larsson. I met with the Minister of Agriculture in Vienna last week, and we talked about how the wastewater treatment plant from Austria can become a resource plant. And I will come back to that in my intervention later on. But one message I think is really interesting to hear the energy perspective, and we see that today's wastewater treatment plant can become the the resource producer of energy when it comes to biogas, and the biogas can be stored to secure the city's bottlenecks of energy production. And I'd like to talk more about that with you going forward. But I really see the huge potential to use the wastewater treatment plant as the energy buffer, but store it as biogas, not convert it to other resources, and then produce electricity in the next one. I don't know what you think about that. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Sure, why not? Yeah, every source which we have should be used. Yeah? I'm not against biogas. The point is you have to have a look on the amount what is needed in electricity or on energy. Yeah? We use 70 terawatt hours on electricity, and wind, solar, small hydro, biogas is responsible for 10 to 12%. So if we just rely on this, we have to cut 80% of our energy consumption.
So we can't rely, but bottlenecks, challenges can be dealt with. And I mean that here suddenly the wastewater treatment plant can play an important role.
Yeah, sure. Use every point.
Thank you. We have Matt in the building.
One item from ETP. My question relates to hydro and the future. How do you see that the connection between, how do you see the role of the hydro power and foreseeing that the glaciers are melting? I assume that most of the hydro are then relates to your alpine regions. Will that be could it pragmatically a positive thing? You'll have more water, or in the end, I mean, it's all melting down. But how do you see that? What are the forecasts about potential production? And also, I think this is also an ecosystem question. Right? Is there something that hydro could? What is the role there of the hydro?
That's a really good question. I discussed just a few months ago with the operator in Austria. But if you talk of hydropower, you have to a little bit split. Yeah, run-of-river power plants, baseload, and what you're talking, glaciers. We use, for example, in high-head power plants responsible for peak load production. The past 20 years, the operator said me every year they faced 1% more of production. This was due to the glacier melting. Yeah? Now they are facing the production goes back. And what I learned, the glacier is not only water storage, it's also like a big swamp in the alpine region. So every drop of water falling on a snowfield is captured. If the glacier is melting, every drop of water just comes down to the blank rocket and it washes basically the environment there, and is reliable or responsible for big floods. So this, as I said, it's not always one parameter. In the end, if the glacier is gone, then we will see how to handle it.
Jesus was strong statement.
It's a little bit critical, but yeah.
I think I can get one more question,
Okay.
and then one we can have it, Nanya, please. We need it to move
So
it
my
to
question
the
is similar to Mana's concern. So technically, are there any adaptive technologies or infrastructure that you are using in hydropower systems in order to, one, ensure the efficiency of hydropower under droughts, like the flow will decrease, so are there any technologies you're following? And the second one is that in case of floods, are we building hydropower systems that are resilient to floods scenarios under climate change?
Well,
So many questions for you.
In case of drought, I know that there is a European satellite observation over the years where they check rainfall and so on and see that there is less and less water in the river. That's true. So in this case, we should adapt the machines. Yeah, so the units can be adapted, can be in terms of refurbishment, adapted to better efficiencies. It's probably very easy. Critical part is more the floods. Yeah. Hydropower plants itself are planned for higher floods, for, I don't know, 100, 500 years floods. And it's not the point. The question is more the water just running down the river and cannot be used for the energy production. That's probably more the point.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
sorry we have to move
Yeah,
to
yeah, sure.
the next panelist, which is